Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. I'm John and today I'm reviewing album number 3, Manic, by the prominent pop artist Halsey. This follows up a few years of really successful singles and even her concept album, Hopeless Fountain Kingdom, but this time around, it seems like she's trying to get a bit more introspective and expand her musical horizons. I have never been that much of a Halsey fan at all. That much has probably been very clear if you've ever watched my videos on her music and her, let's call them extracurricular antics over the years. Halsey rose to fame as some sort of Tumblr-era queen, the voice for that fake deep crowd that practically drowned in her kiddie pool dystopian fantasies every time she dropped a new song. That image slowly evolved over time, and even though her personality has continued to rub me the wrong way pretty frequently, there's a line between the art and the artist that allowed me to enjoy some of her music without the shadow of, well, I don't really like this artist as a person hanging over my head. From Roman Holiday, Gasoline, Walls Could Talk, Strangers Without Me, yeah, it seems like saying it out loud now, I've got a pretty decent little stack of songs piling up that I really do feel a connection to. However, with this third full-length album, Manic, the pretentious aura of the dystopian society concept album has been dropped in favor of something much more personal, and as Halsey put it, a reflection on her current worldview. You might be thinking to yourself, John, you mentioned that you don't care for her personality outside of the music very much, so how is this going to affect your feelings on the record considering it's much more personal? It's a solid question. I was asking myself the same thing going in, but on this new album, Halsey genuinely seems to have turned over a new leaf in many ways as she improved her songwriting skills, broadened her influences, and got intimate about the details of her life, which for me made her a whole lot more likable, relatable, and most importantly, human. Reaching a pretty wide range of genres without feeling like you're flopping around wildly like a shark on sand doesn't exactly come easily, especially when you're primarily a pop artist that's working with a considerable amount of producers that could potentially pull your sound in a lot of different directions. Some of these tracks have a pretty crisp pop-pop flavor to them, others take more of an alt-rock approach, and some have this kind of intimate singer-songwriter avenue that have this 90s and 2000s sting to them that really works in her favor. She's a talented singer in a studio setting when the conditions are right, and Manic mostly serves up hits that Halsey is ready to knock out of the park. My point before was that having a lot of producers and co-writers can often make for a very shaky roller coaster ride, leaving some songs feeling totally out of place or unconnected, but amazingly enough, this album is wildly tight, cohesive, and well produced throughout its 47-minute runtime. Point blank, no bullshit, Halsey is just way more likable all around as an artist on Manic. I didn't want to make too many assumptions based on the two singles I heard, those being Without Me because duh, as well as Graveyard, but I really dug both of those tracks in their own way, and it seemed like her willingness to be open without being overly obnoxious, I'm looking at you, Bad at Love, was pretty damn refreshing. And it's nice to hear an album that lives up to, and even surpasses at times, some of the expectations that I'd unintentionally set after hearing them. She shows off a versatility in her vocal range with the electrifying pop rocker 3AM, in addition to cuts like Finally/Beautiful Stranger, which is honestly such a gorgeous track that taps into a bit of a folky sound that floats over you like a silk robe. The depth she's willing to explore got surprisingly deep, and I mean actually deep this time. I'll admit that I teared up quite a bit after realizing that the track towards the end of this record More was actually about some of the pregnancies and the children, the miscarriages that she had lost, the life that could have been. And in addition to that, she tackles some of her past relationship woes on other tracks in a pretty damn entertaining way without ever really feeling too petty. The biggest warning signs that work against the album have to do with its rather slack-jawed musicality that overextends itself in places, and the fact that Manic just feels like it's a few songs too long. It's not entirely easy to say which songs should have been cut, if any, but I'm personally not a fan of the generic trap percussion and the slow-to-build momentum that the opening cut Ashley offers, or the odd tropical influence of something like Still Learning, where she just seemingly runs in circles before getting to the more impactful swan song 929. Places and traces of ordinary run-of-the-mill yawns do surface on some tracks, but it's rarely something that brings down the mood for too long. For example, Clementine is a whimsical tune that feels like a crisp fall day in song form, and while I definitely feel like she nails the mood overall, there's elements at play that I find to be a bit too choppy, but at the same time, I really do like her attitude, especially when those gripping, I don't need anyone yells kick in the background. Are we gonna call them yells, shouts? Whatever they are, they just really come in, and they're another thing that make me connect to the track. Surprisingly enough, the interludes go 3 for 3 and absolutely kill it. It was cool to see Halsey bringing this feature to a track and also not having it throwing off the pacing, because interludes can be a bit of a risk, a little bit of a gamble, but here she clearly has chemistry with all three of the guests. She doesn't have any features on the record outside of these, so why the hell not? Forever is a long time as a twinkling atmosphere with stern vocals and a captivating fade out before building a piano back up in a really haunting manner before Halsey storms back through and just... that part is gold. It kind of gives me chills, especially with the cassette tape transition right to the interlude just after that. There's a lot to be said for Killing Boys too, mainly that it feels pretty cinematic. Some of that has to do with the film references, but more prominently I would say that it samples directly from the 2009 classic film Jennifer's Body, but it's a fun little bite that fades away just a bit too quickly, but manages to leave an impression with some thumping drums and salty anecdotes about her split with G-Eazy. Halsey's new book of musings come to life on Manic, an album that I wouldn't say that I love, but also I have to readily admit that it very much is a step up from her past releases that I found painfully dull as entire bodies of work. She slips in plenty of daunting quips and keeps the narrative more engaging more often than not, but there's also some kind of lingering empty spaces that don't color outside of the lines as much as they probably could have to make those moments more memorable. Overall for Manic, I'm rating this a 3.5 out of 5, a strong 3.5 at that. Trust me when I say I debated the upgrade to a 4 many times, and ratings are kind of arbitrary, but just as an entire body of work, it's not quite there to earn that score from me. That's of course just my opinion though, so what did everybody else in the neighborhood think? Sound off in the comments section down below, and do me a favor, take a split second out of your day if you enjoyed the review, and smash that like button. Subscribe if you happen to be new to my channel, and follow me on social media at all of these links that you see here in the description down below. If you want to go above and beyond, then support me on Patreon at the top link, and I will see you soon for more on ARTV.